Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am going to be doing a lot of glimmering. So I thought that maybe in this video I'll show some glimmering because what I was trying to do when I sat down to craft with Yana's new collection called I think it's De-light-ful Christmas. I wanted to try to glimmer onto different substrates, so something besides the regular glimmer specialty paper or regular white cardstock that I normally use. And so what I did was just to get started, warm up a little bit, I did start with some cardstock. And I like to use, if I'm using cardstock, either in white, I like the Hammermill 100-pound digital color copy paper, and in color cardstock, I like to use the Spellbinders cardstock because that's also 100-pound, and it's smooth, it's not textured. And so that tends to glimmer for me better than some of the other colored cardstock that I have that is either thinner or perhaps has some texture to it. So that has worked out pretty well. But what I am experimenting with is glimmering onto vellum, which is this piece that's going through here. And I have a few of the pieces from this collection. So this first glimmer plate is a nice background plate that is called Glimmer Holly. And it's great because it's just got a lot of holly leaves and berries, and it just makes for a really nice background. You could color it in if you wanted. I think it looks great on its own as well. So, lots of different opportunities for that. And I also glimmered onto acetate. With both the acetate and the vellum, you do want to make sure that you're using heat-proof versions of them, and so that is something to look for just to make sure that because the glimmer plate does get hot, so you just want to make sure it doesn't melt onto your plate. But I've got that in a couple of different colors of foil as well as onto different substrates. Then I also have the De-light-ful Christmas Glimmer hot foil, which is pretty fun. So that's the one that is on the mat that I use. It's a magnetic mat that I use to glimmer onto, and it's really cute. It's a background, so it can fill a full card if you want, but it has just like a messy string of lights, which I think is pretty fun. I had this leftover little strip of foil. I wanted to go ahead and use it, so so I pulled out some of the sentiments from A Merry Little Christmas Sentiments, which has a lot of. It's really nice, this one, because I love that there are some sentiments that are larger. And here's a close-up look of how some of those foilings. I like to kind of, when I'm doing my glimmering, I like to just do quite a few at the same time and pull out all of my plates and glimmer as much as I can. And so sometimes when I'm waiting, I'll just multitask a little bit. So here's how some of those turned out. And I did notice with the acetate that it did shrink a little bit in one direction, not in both. So I guess that's to be expected because the plate is debossing into the substrate, and so that has to come from somewhere. So it does make sense that it, even though I cut the panel to exactly a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel of acetate, when I was done, it ended up being the 5.5 stayed about the same pretty much, but along that 4.5 inch direction, it shrank maybe, I would say, probably less than 1/4 of an inch. Probably maybe closer to an eighth or maybe 3/16. But what I was saying with the sentiments is that I love that there are some sentiments in that Glimmer plate collection that are large and have a nice mix of different fonts. I love when they do that. And by large, I mean like multi-line, 3-4 lines. And then there are some sentiments that are just like small strips that are multi-line, but they're still pretty, the font is small. And it's sort of in that capital, block lettering. And then there are some sentiments that are like maybe a mid-size. So there's quite a variety there. And the larger ones, the ones that aren't, just strictly the capital kind of block letters, they have coordinating dies to cut them out too. So that's really nice as well. So I'm going to glimmer up a bunch of sentiments as well, just so that I have them to use on my projects later. And here's how the lights turned out. That was glimmered onto some clear acetate as well. So what I like to do when I get the glimmer plates is I just do all of my glimmering, and then I set everything aside. And now I'll turn one of those into a card, but I'll have a follow-up video with some as well. So oddly enough, I'm not sure how this happened. It might have happened because I just put everything in the same little storage pocket, but on this particular piece here, what I glimmered was gold foil onto acetate, but somehow or another, I got some flecks of red foil and just throughout the whole panel. And then I flipped it over to the back and it looked really pretty. So, because it's just that silver backing to your foil. And I decided I think I like the silver better because it doesn't have the red flecks in it, because the back of the red foil is also silver. So however it is that I managed to get those red flecks, and I wipe this down with a soft, I like to use a Swiffer cloth to wipe my glimmered panels, and it wasn't coming off. I actually had to really like scrape with my fingernail to get it off. And so I decided I wasn't gonna try to get every bit of red off because it was just so interspersed throughout that panel. When I saw the back of this, I thought, well, that's really pretty. I'll just use the back. So I guess that's one nice thing about using acetate. So you have the front and the back as an option. Now I'm making a sort of a clear card front. So I decided to make this a landscape oriented card because, as I mentioned, along that 5.5-inch edge, it kept that size. It's just that in that 4.25 dimension, it shrank a little bit. So all I did was I cut a 1-inch by 5.5-inch strip of black cardstock, and I scored that in half at 1/2 inch just to make a hinge. And that way I can attach my acetate to one glue tab of that hinge, and the other glue tab of the hinge I glued to the back of a 4.25 by 5.5 black cardstock panel, which would be the inside of the card. And this sentiment I actually happened to have glimmered ages ago, probably last Christmas, and I had it left over. I wanted it to stay in the silver and black. whereas all of the other sentiments from this collection that I glimmered up were in golds and reds and greens, and I didn't want to add another color. I just wanted to stay very monochromatic here. And so this is my final sort of a floating card front. Really, really fun, and it is a nice heat-resistant acetate, which is a little bit thicker, so it stands really nicely as well. I hope that you enjoyed this card today. I'll have a follow-up video with more cards that I feature the Yana's De-light-ful Christmas collection and some of the panels and sentiments that I glimmered up in this session here. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!